So something is really wrong with the video clip I'm about to show you. This is Merrick Garland here. He is the Attorney General for the United States of America. He leads the Justice Department, and he is in a church right now, and he's going to give a message to this church to support his administration. I have a lot of questions on why he's even in a church giving this sort of message, but you're going to see the content of it and what he is going to say. It is so absurd. But the idea that this guy, the Attorney General for the United States of America under the Biden administration, is even doing this is absolutely strange. So let me play the clip for you, and then I'll share some of my thoughts after.
The right to vote is still under attack. And that is why the Justice Department is fighting back. That is why one of the first things I did when I came into office was to double the size of the voting section of the Civil Rights Division. That is why we are challenging efforts by states and jurisdictions to implement discriminatory, burdensome, and unnecessary restrictions on access to the ballot, including those related to mail-in voting, the use of drop boxes, and voter ID requirements. That is why we are working to block the adoption of discriminatory redistricting plans that dilute the vote of black voters and other voters of color.
So we all know what he's talking about. When it comes down to it, the big issue is showing your ID when you go to vote. When it comes to voting, there's two really important things in the United States of America. Number one, we want all those who can vote to be able to vote. And we also want to make sure that we have secure elections. To have those two things happen at the same time, you can't have a free-for-all, but you also can't have too many restrictions so that some individuals who would vote won't because of those restrictions. What they are saying is that if somebody needs to show an ID to actually prove who they are, that is a restriction that is too deep, too much. And that is a repression of the vote. If you're driving a car, you need an ID. If you get a job, you need an ID. If you have a bank account, you need an ID. If you get a house, you need an ID. If you get a loan, you need an ID. The list just goes on. So if you're going to vote, we cannot have IDs for that. So how are we going to secure this? Well, they're just going to sign their name, right? So we're going to just trust that they sign their name correctly. So you're telling me that there are people in the United States who exist who don't have IDs, don't have access to getting IDs, and therefore they don't drive, they don't have a job, they don't have a bank, they don't have a home, they don't have anything ever that would require an ID, but somehow this same individual is going to be able to vote, this person. And that's the person we're protecting, and they don't even know how to go out and actually get an ID. This is what they're literally saying. Now, of course, there's other issues like the ballot box, mail-in ballots. There's a lot of thoughts on making sure that those things remain secure too, because the traditional way to do it is if you're going to do a mail-in ballot, you have to request the mail-in ballot. It's a security step in the mail-in ballot. And then, of course, that mail-in ballot is going to be mailed back to your residence, the one that it was requested from. And you have to put your signature down, and there has to be a witness to it. It has to be dated correctly and turned in correctly. A lot of these rules were just done away with during our last election. And of course, in order to make sure that things are secure, like we're not just giving out ballots to everybody. There's just blank ballots being, given out and without any sort of protections like this. And people are going door to door. Democrats would love this because obviously the inner cities are just rampant with Democrat voters, and it's so easy to go from door to door. But with all that said, why in the world is Merrick Garland even in a church saying this? I mean, that alone is strange that the Attorney General again for the United States, like he doesn't have anything else more important going on, and he's actually in a church saying this sort of stuff. I by no means want to limit anyone's right to vote. We live in a great nation. It used to be much greater, still is great, kind of really declining pretty rapidly. And I want anyone who can vote to be able to vote. But I also want to make sure that it's secure and that we don't have people who are voting who are not actually voting, or people who would take advantage of the system. And when you have something as important as a presidential election, people will take advantage of the system. So there needs to be security measures in place that still allow everyone to vote, but make sure it's secure. Common sense, voter ID. It's just super common sense. Making sure that there's limitations on the ballots, the mail-in ballots, super common sense. The drop-off locations, there should be limitations with that on how long they're out there and a number of other things. Common sense. This is not restricting anyone's right to vote. It's nothing like what the Democrats instituted back in the day, like the polling tax, the black codes. That's right. It was the Democrats, a Democrat like Merrick Garland, who instituted those things. Those were truly things to stop individuals from voting. Showing an ID is not. You're not trying to prevent someone from voting. You're trying to make sure that the person who is voting is actually that person. It's a very simple security step that's put in place. What do you think about this? Leave your comments below. I'll catch you in the next video.